TLDR, the other best of three, is still going on, so we're still waiting for the finals. Another game 2 or 3. But hopefully we'll have the finals soon.
Well, whoops. I actually fell asleep there for a second. Let me get up for a sec. While we wait.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm super on my last legs here. They are out of game, so a score. That was a very long game. I would hope that that was at least game 2. It is tied up on 1. Let's hop into game 3 with them. Invite, please. So this will be game 3 of a TvT. The winner of this will go on to fight against Hero in a TvP. And I gotta say, actually, Hero's had some pretty good TvP with Cheese. So the finals could be really fun. Like,
yeah.
wake up fun.
Yeah, the finals should be fun.
Yeah.
Hero doesn't supremely disappoint us. No, I'm just kidding here. I love you.
By the way, as I bring up this big bastard on stream, this is the Platinum K95 I got from Corsair. Just give you guys an idea real quick of how big this is. Here's the two keyboard size comparison, I guess. Like, that's the one I'm using, K70 Rapid Fire, and this is the other one. It's like way bigger. I haven't opened it up yet still, and I cannot wait to find out what the secret is as to like why it's so heavy. This thing seriously weighs a ton.
It's gotta be just the casing, right? It's just made of
I don't know. I will tell you that the
material.
Regardless of the weight and all that, it like just the preview on the box, it looks way prettier than the K70.
Oh,
but,
that's how you feel.
I really like the rapid fire key things. I've come to really like those, so I'm not sure if I'll totally swap over. Anyways, more on that later when we do the Corsair Cup. I'm saving it specifically for our next Corsair Cup cast. Getting into game number 3, though, we did not cast game 1 or 2 of this series. They played without us, and that's totally fine because we gave them permission to. In the other semifinals, in the bottom left, we have the Red Terran player, GuMiho.
In the bottom right is the Blue Terran. He is KeeN.
Alright, so both of these guys have got more than enough practice playing TvT. This is probably the side of the bracket Crank wishes he was on, but not Crank, excuse me, Ryung wishes he was on. However, should he have won this, he still would have had to go through that grand finals, and it would have been super awkward having a forfeit in the finals.
Yeah, it would have. But, you know, I had a point about that, but I forgot it. So it's TvT, and we've seen these guys play each other before.
Nailed it.
Yeah, right? You don't know what happened in game 1 or game 2. Certainly, it's a variety of different builds. TvT has a... It does have still, you know, different openers, but a lot of times it is more about the Reaper Cyclone.
Well, Reaper Cyclone has certainly become a big part of it. For me, though, it has been kind of cool watching people adapt the Ravens. Like, obviously just 1 is already cool and nice and different, but having people like Innovation go that next step and do 2, and watching what auto turrets can really get accomplished in a game, like, those are some beastly caster units, I must say.
Just like us. Beefy casters.
What are you trying to say about
and
me?
And then you flex, and then you go...
Oh, that kind of beefy. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I would have insulted myself, too, if I was insulting people.
Yeah, well, you see beefy, I was thinking like beefy ravioli or something, you know? Not like, oh,
okay.
That beefcake. Look at those muscles on that guy. And that
yeah,
gal.
I didn't mean beefcake either. Maybe somewhere in between. Anyway, there is a one berries versus expand situation going on here, but KeeN, for whatever reason, and I really don't know why, I feel like he's one of the only guys that still goes for a Hellion. Maybe Alive does that occasionally too, but just thinking like more and more about it, playing TvT, watching TvT, is there really a reason to get a Hellion over a Cyclone? Because I've done the build and it doesn't delay your starport units. Unless I'm doing something extremely wrong. So I don't know the reason for it. And it doesn't, you know, the Hellion is not in any way better than the Cyclone. I guess it has Splash, technically, but I think a Cyclone is still better. And you ask most pro gamers, I feel, ones that speak English, and they say that the Cyclone's always better. I don't know about the Hellions. They confuse me. But the Ravens do not. Ravens are the shit, so KeeN goes for a Raven makes sense.
Well, unfortunately, there doesn't appear to be a way up here. Marines and Cyclones all over the place, policing this. In fact, that grenade actually hops it a little bit closer to his Reapers, but they did make it all the way to the main, surprisingly, and it looks like at least an SCV or two is going to go down.
This is so annoying. And the Hellion could go in the natural.
I guess this might be part of like why we see Hellions get made, to avoid things like this. The Cyclones are just a little bit too slow from catching up. I mean, this did not riggedy wreck GuMiho, but this is certainly annoying. 5 workers dead on top of the fact that, oh, I can't show the income graph. Feels bad, man, but he had to pull a couple that were playing Ring Around the Rosie, so that hurt him for sure.
It might be. That is the true benefit of the Hellion, is not its limited splash damage, but the speed of it. So, GuMiho did take another SCV loss, making the natural, but there's only one SCV there, so it doesn't really matter. And KeeN just keeps his Hellions alive. It is feeling pretty paranoid about the counter, though, because he does really only have the Hellions, and Cyclones are better. So I definitely see the purpose of the bunker. The tank also would have been in danger. The Cyclones could have just run up to it with a drop that landed on it, too.
Yeah, even if they didn't do the dead zone trick, Cyclones actually have more DPS than tanks when it comes to those fights, especially when there's 2 of them.
They're nice units. But everyone just calms down a second and just backs off from each other as they get their naturals now set up. KeeN went for 1 Raven, but then invested into double Vikings. He might even get 2 more Vikings to really secure his air advantage. And with the 3rd CC, I wouldn't be surprised at all to see 2 extra Vikings. Just play super defensive, make sure they can never drop you, cover your main base, cover your natural, cover your ramp with tanks. Cowards would play TvT.
Okay. That's a completely, absolutely necessary addition to that, but yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that's how I play it. I'm never going to get Doom dropped if I make 10 missile turrets.
Never get to that point because it's either over with the proxy racks early for him or for me.
Good point. They both go for fast 3rd CCs, so I'm probably not going to see the game end before they try and take them.
Cyclones lose a lot of their power as the game goes on. I actually don't mind that he's using these to scout / poke with, though, because honestly, like, Marines are just going to be better at certain stages of this game.
Yeah. Mid game, they're still okay, but for sure they're gonna run out of use. KeeN does have this Viking control, but aware of the Wood of Mine. Nice eyes, KeeN. Takes care of it. What do you think you're gonna do? Run away from auto turret?
I mean, on one hand, it does eat up the auto turret, though. That's 1 less auto turret going towards the mineral lines. Wood of Mine's not exactly expensive units on the spectrum of cost here when it comes to StarCraft 2, so maybe not too bad, but KeeN's bulking up this really awesome Raven Viking composition where you get about 5 of them. I think is about standard. Other side of the map, GuMiho does have 2 Ravens out. He's getting his own Viking production up now. I'm curious to see if they'll clash against each other and if that 1 extra Raven will make a world of difference. That 1 extra point defense right now, you know?
Maybe it will. I don't know. GuMiho, if he's really going to try and take air control, I think he would have no problem doing so. This is delaying his medevacs, and KeeN hasn't even started his, despite already having 5 Vikings, but they would be even in those terms. Pretty even on upgrades as well. I mean, GuMiho is like a minute plus behind on stim, but I don't think they'll be attacking into each other to abuse that. If anything, KeeN would try like 1 drop, but he doesn't have medevacs.
So they both just got some pretty big scans on each other's bases, by the way. And GuMiho, I think the first thing he'll notice, he is not exactly ahead when it comes to tech. You know, his stim's way behind that of KeeN's right now, and his production's not nearly as good, having seen all those extra barracks come down. He's plopped some down himself and is going to try and play, I guess, a little bit of catch-up.
The production already being done is definitely more worrying than I think the stim is. Stim should be, but just the fact that they both take 3rd bases and are playing pretty defensive, no medevacs, means that I believe they just won't be attacking into each other. And if they do, it'd be very cautious, right? Like, very much dependent on tanks being in good position. GuMiho has 1 medevac, KeeN has 0, but that's okay as long as KeeN is in the defense. He just needs his tanks in good position. His Vikings might be entirely out of position. He's trying to go for a lot of them.
Look at KeeN's 3rd on the minimap. Does that not look like fat dude peeing into a urinal with his arms held up back behind him?
You're crazy. I'm not even gonna try and find that. But the auto turret and the cyclone helps a lot in killing these tanks.
Yeah,
the Vikings
Ravens
come forward, but a little bit too late. He was trying to hide them and stockpile them.
The Ravens are just so powerful.
Wow.
I mean, what I liked about that too was the unsieged tanks out of GuMiho pushing in, just guaranteeing no time would be wasted whatsoever. Funny thing is though, if KeeN lands the Vikings, he might not have too terrible of defense as far as pushing up that ramp, but the fact that GuMiho was able to shoo off that third base is pretty massive.
These guys look like they went mech. There's so few Marines. No one really used Stim in that engagement. Which, I wasn't wrong, like Stim was not the reason this game like was attacking or not attacking. GuMiho just he didn't need Stim to break tanks apparently. Auto turrets are better than Stim.
Well, let's continue to scan to try and get an eye on the army. It's this army I think he's looking for though. The Viking count, like it is impressive on 9, but I do want to point out that even if you land them, they're not any better versus Marines. They're only better against mechanical units. So
right.
KeeN having this many Vikings, okay, A, that's a little bit of air control, but then B, that's just when you scan to get back that air control that you can't currently have.
They're a little bit useless, I think. His plan was definitely to have this kind of a bit more time, really. Get to a lot more Marines, so it's really Marine tank versus Marine tank, and then boom, GuMiho thinks he's fine defensively, or even fine with a contain, and then you get Liberators. And then he feels like he's screwed, but it took way too long to get to that point. Or rather, GuMiho attacked way too soon. Freaking to be prepared, and these Liberators are going to feel really useless. Now that GuMiho does have Marine production, even adding on 3 more barracks already in a 4th CC.
Yeah, I mean, being able to produce starport units is great and all, but having like 12 to 16 Marines in your production tab is also pretty sweet.
I would give GuMiho the better composition, but if the game goes on for 1 or 2 more minutes, then maybe the Liberators would be too big of a problem. But these Vikings having such control. But it would have to be like more than just a couple Liberators, because GuMiho will have enough Marines to be worthwhile targeting down the Liberators. Unless KeeN got like Liberator range, which would be really crazy. Oh, GuMiho's gonna scout, I guess, an army moving to the north, so maybe the intention of taking a 4th from KeeN. He's already got his 4th, even long distance mining, because he transferred the cities already. 2-2 finishes up, so it'll be even on upgrades. GuMiho will probably get faster 3-3, and he is just going to try and take back Viking control. I really think he could play this game out, Marine tank versus Marine tank, just like max out quicker than KeeN to get a good concave. But it looks like he's not going to risk it and just play into KeeN's game, which might favor him. If KeeN got wind of this and went back into Viking Wars and it turned into awkward siege tank lines with Vikings, that would just extend the game so long that KeeN might be able to find a way back from a 20 supply deficit.
Well, Planetary is not exactly peace of mind the same way it is against Zerglings, but it will do a lot of damage to Marines. So this attack out of KeeN, I don't think should get too much done here, especially with the tank ready and available.
This is super dangerous. Yeah, the fact that a tank and a Planetary are both going to be there against this many Marines means that GuMiho could have, if he was already in position, maybe he could have tried to break KeeN, but he's not in position. He does thwart this really easily.
Get out of my base, you stupid kids. Get off my lawn.
Yeah. GuMiho's going to try and trap the Marines. It is a significant amount of army supply, but he'll be drawn so far back. This is, again, maybe okay for KeeN. And he even gets away with 60 Marines and 2 medevacs. So this is really okay for KeeN. He's just extending his comeback potential by getting maxed out. GuMiho will have much bigger bank. Maybe he'll get Viking control and Liberator control again, but the game is not going to be about numbers at some point. It's going to be about positioning and position.
Well, it definitely feels like GuMiho is going to have a much better fight going forward. He has caught up with the Viking count. The air count's not too bad either, just generally speaking. A little bit of splash from said Liberators, but that plus weapon upgrade should help out a ton on the air if he can pull it off.
Going to a concave usually... Going into a choke usually doesn't do too well. KeeN's tanks are already siege, and yeah, initially they were attacking all different angles. They did eventually focus.
He didn't just win, he like super won that Viking count, by the way. 9 Vikings dead total for KeeN. GuMiho gonna snipe off yet another one. Medevac's gonna be next on the target list, and of course the Marines can't really snipe in for the Vikings and put some range to the tanks, so a bit of an awkward fight to say the least. Once all the Medevacs are gone and the Marines are dead, he could potentially drop, but looks like, just barely enough Marines. KeeN breaks GuMiho.
Yeah. That was an important break. Like, KeeN, he has momentum here. He scans and sees the tank count's only at 1, so I think if he brings his own tanks, he should be able to just, he'll obliterate the tanks if he doesn't keep up with it too.
SCV's getting pulled. This is getting kind of scary for GuMiho.
It is. Now, he could just take his third base back to the main and buy time, and he would be fine with that. He has a fourth base and extra 2 command centers, but the Liberators come out and he doesn't need to lift his third at all.
That's a nice pickup, by the way, to get those tanks out of there alive, because they would not have walked away in time. They would have definitely died to the Liberator shots, so keeps them alive for another day.
Tanks don't walk, so
okay. The tank drivers.
They rock and roll. Hey. Anyway. GuMiho was in a scary position for a second, but seeing this fourth base only just flying over has got to be a good feeling. I think he might have also seen the orbital in the other base. Oh, he might kill it. No, he's not gonna kill it. Okay, well. He stopped KeeN from finding a way back in and even taking an advantage with those Liberators. But damn, I did not think the game was gonna go on for this long. Come on. Sure, they opened with 3 CC, but I thought KeeN was taking some pretty good damage, and if GuMiho had maybe made some more clutch moves, his momentum would have been too good, but things have evened out again. KeeN is up in workers, so now that he has 2 more mining bases, he might be okay. And, is still a decent amount of army supply. 20 army supply, that is tanks and better positioning. And I don't know if Viking control is really, like... Usually Viking control just goes away at some point, as there's so many scans available, but the Liberators might be a good trick.
Yeah, that's the nice escort that these provide. Of course, Marines can still stim underneath them, given the right circumstances, but that's the idea. You need the tanks and the Liberators covering each other, make sure this doesn't get too out of hand. Also going to take really is one Liberator where he sets up all of them.
This is such a good position for the Liberators. The Marines can't even, like, really stim on top of them. It'd be too awkward. KeeN can't really afford to go for Vikings. I guess technically he can right now, but that's because he's not producing from his other facilities. So, that's a mistake. That's a big mistake.
Liberator set up a little bit outside of range. I mean, even if these are just like one-shotting the Marines, they're still effective, but obviously it's a lot better to be shooting those tanks as well as the bigger health units.
KeeN could maybe pick up. I don't really know if there's any drop opportunity for him. GuMiho still has a lot of army back being waiting to reinforce, as well as planetaries protecting at least the most important fourth base. This is an orbital, and walk by seems to be more effective than the medevac drops. Bad.
Yeah,
that's an orbital.
Killed command center. Okay, that sucks. Nice. Meanwhile, on the other side of the map, big fight commences. Liberators are focused down before they even get any shots off, but tanks clean up most of KeeN's bio army.
It might have been worth for KeeN to take out the Liberators. He won't die immediately because of it, but his army supply still is hurting. He did a couple tanks.
You think got a pretty important base from GuMiho, by the way. I mean, that command center is ready to start muling for sure.
That's true, but that was not a main command center or something like that. That was an extra orbital, and he has another extra orbital just waiting to land again.
Another one.
Exactly. So GuMiho is not worried about losing out, like, oh shit, I don't have a bank, like in any of those scenarios. I think he realizes he can plant those down again, lift his main base, and he'll be fine. But he is at risk, like every single time he pushes in and does not kill KeeN and has his economy delayed is a risk that he'll just look back at his bank and be like, wait a second, I don't have Viking control anymore, I don't have Liberators anymore, I don't have a bank anymore, what do I have against KeeN? And the answer might just be the exact same thing as him.
Passion.
It's a lot more of an interesting, even game. Yeah, maybe he has more passion.
Well, 10 tanks to 2. I don't think you need to be a scientist to read that one. But the Marines actually get a good concave, so hold the phone. Yeah. That evens up pretty quickly, and that's now 5-4, to 2. No longer the overwhelming 10-2 that we saw moments ago. Yeah, it was a questionable move in by KeeN anyway. Like, he was the one that moved in aggressively to his opponent, which is usually not going to put you in a good position. So
I think he thought, wow, 10 tanks, I gotta win this, right? But he chose the position on Newkirk that is probably the best concave possible. Now Liberators are on the way back out, says GuMiho. Like, especially in these lower Marine situations, they're both only having around 100 supply at 19 minutes. And Liberators could probably lead very easily. GuMiho has his orbital mining again to the top, and he could just lift his team and go somewhere else should he need to.
No direct need to yet. I'd say one of the problems right now is because the STV count for GuMiho kind of lower. Well, I guess both of them lower, I guess, for 4 bases. They can kind of just transfer them around at this point because their remains and naturals are likely empty. In fact, yeah, geysers are totally exhausted in both.
Oh, killing tanks. Very good here. KeeN is... I think KeeN at one point was playing just like, okay, if I have more tanks, maybe I can win an engagement, but he can't afford them now.
Yeah, I didn't realize, too, KeeN had really massive upgrade leads on his tanks through all of this, but I think if GuMiho had been able to get the right Liberators, would have done a lot of damage himself.
Let's map this out, right? And like, +2. There's no significant advantage in upgrades at tanks. It's not like they suddenly start one-shotting Marines. It really has to do with just like that little tiny extra bit of splash. So it sometimes does not look that impressive, especially if your opponent has a concave, which GuMiho has had every single time.
The Liberators actually just taking out the medevacs right now. It's kind of funny to watch, but I think this is finally that breaking point. GuMiho, GG, takes the series 2-1.
KeeN would not die because he played really well.
Well, it's going to be GuMiho versus Hero in the grand finals, the best of 5. Stick around, guys. We'll be back in 2 minutes while we set that up.